And welcome back to another episode of the $1 Million Coach podcast. Joined by all the gang back together this week. Christina and I were a little bit lonely last week. Sam and Ash had better offers, but they are back this week, which is good to see. Welcome, team. How are we all?
Wonderful. How you doing?
All the better for seeing all your lovely faces. And Christina is feeling good because she's got some storage. She's feeling light, fresh, and unburdened with a full laptop.
It's true.
It's cleansing. All right, team. We've covered some big topics in the last few weeks, but I thought I would draw us back to something a little more tangible and practical today because that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
And I thought we would get into the topic of pain points. So I know we talk about our niche and we cover that in the course as well as finding your niche, your people. Who do you want to serve? And when we talk about pain points, it can be a little bit overwhelming for people to maybe understand what they are and then how to identify them for their particular niche. Away we go.
Well,
Sam.
So this is how do I want to begin this? So pain points are an interesting term, first of all, right? So when we talk about like pain points relative to niche, and I'll speak from my own experience, kind of addressing this particular thing, and if I'm off topic relative to everyone else's understanding, please let me know. But like, I have a service that I provide to my clients, and my service looks like a certain thing. They come to me, we talk about X, we do Y, blah, blah, blah. Like there's the what that is my offering. But that is in service of the resolution of something else, right? So very often my clients come to me and they say, oh, I'd like to accomplish X, I had a gentleman who came to me and he was like, I moved, and since the move, I haven't been back into the gym, and I want to get back into the gym. And that is a perfectly reasonable and logical reason to want to do something, and was not at all the truth. And it's not that he was lying, it's that it wasn't accurate, right? And so the fact that he wasn't in the gym was not causing him pain. But not being in the gym or not doing X, Y, or Z caused a bunch of other things. His blood pressure was starting to creep up. He was starting to experience some weight gain and some loss of muscle strength. And because of X, Y, or Z, or whatever figures or like whatever happenings, he started to feel a certain way. And the outcome of feeling a certain way, like that's his pain point. I'm not really addressing the fact, like, hashtag not a doctor, right? Like, I'm not going to fix your blood pressure, right? I'm not going to prescribe you something or other, right? But if you tell me as we discuss things, I want to lower my blood pressure, I'm going to say, what's that going to do for you? Like, great, lower blood pressure. Why is that important to you? And the why helps me find the pain point.
And I think that that's a valid perspective, because when we talk about what we do as coaching, it's asking more questions, building that deeper relationship with clients. When you're working at the trainer level, someone comes into you and goes, I want to lose, 5 pounds, 10 kilos, whatever. And you go, okay, cool, I can sweat that off you, no problem. Rather than, well, what does that look like for you and what does that change for you? And why is that important to you? Oh, well, I don't feel good in my clothes. Okay, cool. So why is that a problem for you? Well, my husband, my partner doesn't, look at me the same way anymore. Or I only get dressed with my eyes shut with the room blacked out, which is kind of problematic to try and find which leg to put through my pants at the right time. So then we start to get to the actual pain point is about their body image. But so you're right, there are 2 levels of pain points, but sometimes it can take either a little bit of relationship building or learning how to build that relationship quite quickly to get to that deeper pain point versus what people are selling themselves with their story. For sure. There's
Yeah.
definitely two ways to go around that.
I love that this is what we're talking about today because it coincides with the PIN program last Friday. This is literally what we just kind of introduced. And Lisa, you brought up a really good point, and Sam, you too. So like, Sam said our job as coaches is to ask questions, right? And then sometimes when clients come to us, they, as kind of Sam implied, they don't even know their real pain point. They're just like, I know I feel better when I work out. I'm taking Sam's client, for example, right? I know I felt better when I was doing that thing and I haven't done it in a while. Things are feeling kind of crappy. So I'm going to go do the thing. And, Sam takes the opportunity to be like, okay, but why is that important to you? Why do you feel better? And then he realizes, well, I feel stronger. I have more energy to play with my kids. I'm not tired at work as much. I'm sleeping better. Take time to be with my wife more, whatever the things. But like a lot of times they haven't asked themselves those questions, so they don't even know. And for us as coaches, those are kind of like the opportunities that we get to help them seek deeper questions and answers within themselves. And it can be hard to break down those walls and barriers and get people real vulnerable on a first case meeting scenario, right? We're not saying you're going to know the ultimate answer in that day one. But as coaches, this is like a real long way around me just saying, as coaches, it is our job to not take the face value and at least try to start asking those questions so that they start thinking that way. And because when they ask those questions, and if they start thinking that way, and that's something that's new to them, they're going to have that internal motivation even more so on than why to do the things with us or with you or whoever they're going to, right? So I feel like that pain point comes in at face value, and our job as coaches is to ask questions to try to get below that surface value. And then the relationship is made, they trust you more, and then more vulnerability comes out, and you find even more and more and more, which also leads them to then needing you more, wanting you more, and doing more for themselves. And you are able to help them do those things.
And I think that can be a tricky thing as coaches is, and spoiler alert, next week we're going to talk about how do you talk about pain points and how do you put that in your messaging and to be able to talk to the people that you want to attract and that you can solve their problems. Because like you said, Ash, sometimes people may not be consciously aware of their, deep down why. Although I would argue that they probably are, they just don't want to go there. And, that's a story that they're creating for themselves is like, I just want to go to the gym because, it makes me feel better. But I think, this is where people can trip themselves up. Coaches can trip themselves up and overcomplicate things in going, okay, I want to serve, 30-year-old plus women who have had kids, and what are the things that they struggle with, and can kind of just leave it at, oh, well, it's time, it's valuing self, it's prioritizing, putting themselves first. And just that's what they think that the pain point is. But it makes it very hard then when you just leave it at that superficial level to then go, what am I really here to solve? And what am I, when we talk about our niche, what am I, we can all in this room train, 30-year-old plus women. We could all, if someone presented to us, we could. But yes, we could all train them, but within that niche, like what are the particular pain points that are our strong point? Like what are the particular areas that we can target well and play to our strengths? And I think coaches can often overcomplicate it Or on the flip side, oversimplify it and just stick at this high level rather than really going, what's behind some of these layers?
Yeah.
And giving them far more scope to then, as we'll talk about next week, how to talk about them, how to address them, how to, package them and, get that message out there about, so that someone hearing it goes, well, they're talking to me.
There's so many ways you can come at this. Part of me, so like a lot of it is what you did on the front end, right? What is your positioning, your packaging, your marketing? Like, how do you represent yourself? And that, as hopefully as a part of your niche, that determines who's going to come to you, right? The presumption is that hopefully the person who is coming to you recognizes that you have something that they want or that they need, right? I love the way Ash talked about like asking questions in order to make sure that we're serving them. We could even take it a level further, right? So if I sit down with a person and they come to me and they say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about X, Y, or Z." Cool. I'd love to set up a time. We sit down, we chit chat. My objective when I have that call is not to sell that person on my service. 100%. That is not my objective. My objective is to empower them to decide. Because so often if they're reaching out and saying, I need help with something, a lot of time that's one way of them acknowledging that they are not in control in some part of their life. And if you genuinely ask them how they feel or what they think about something and genuinely listen, you are already providing them like more freedom and autonomy and control than they might have experienced in a very long while. And in doing that, I'm fulfilling my professional responsibility of like, this person is the priority, not my service, not my sale, not my bottom line, but serving this person. Because if I do these things and I listen and we get to a real thing, I might find out that I'm not the person. And like, that's not bad. I might know someone who is the person. And like, I know Ash might better be able to help this person. It's like, Barney, you're not the person. I don't know why Barney is where I went, but Barney, I'm not the person for you. But thankfully, I know someone who is, and I think you're really going to connect with them. And I know that they're like, if I know Ash is the person for Barney, like I know Ash is going to take care of Barney, and Barney's going to get what he needs. And that's it. I heard that. That's not something I made up. I heard that from someone else, and it was such a cool notion to realize that, like, in identifying pain points and seeking to do so, I don't have to worry about like the bottom line. I can serve them best by asking them these questions and then giving them the freedom to talk about it. And then if I am the person, we can actually like do stuff. But it's also a good thing if I'm not.
Well, yeah. And then you've established a whole nother level of trust with that individual. So you will be, considered for them when they may hear somebody else is looking for something that is more it just like, it goes back to, the whole, people are worried that their CrossFit gym's too close to another CrossFit gym. You are unique. You are fine. We do not have enough CrossFit gyms in the world. Like, who are you serving and why? And it's all going to work out. And if you stay true to your niche as a coach, right? And you do have the ability to say to them, you know what? I think I have the perfect coach for you, but it is not me, and be able to see that and admit that, then you establish yourself even on a higher level of serving them and then serving other coaches in your community. And again, that level of trust is just something that is really hard to find nowadays because everybody's trying to sell something. So now they feel like, oh, you're not trying to sell me the thing. You're actually trying to solve my help me solve my problem.
And Christina, like you and I just had an interesting chat about similar on your coaching call when we talked about coaching, you're sitting there going, oh my God, what's she going to bring up now? But about the fact that coaching, it's like when you're truly coaching somebody, it's not it's your journey can go on a myriad of a path, no matter, like, back to your point, Sam, is like, well, I came in for this thing, but I really am actually here for this thing. And the power of a coaching relationship is we can work through that rather than, well, no, sorry, Barney, we're up to week 3. This is what's happening in week 3. And that's it. And Barney's like, but my week 3 looks like I want to be doing this. It's like, no, here's week 3. But when you're in an actual genuine coaching relationship, the relationship and the path evolves and grows with the client as their needs grow. Any thoughts on that, Christina, after we ruminated on it this morning?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you pulled us there, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that everything that Ashley and Sam are talking about is 100% right. But the other layer of it is that there's a tremendous amount of self-awareness that is within this, right? So not only the pain points, for people who may come to you to, receive your services, but just being aware that pain points exist, right? Being aware of your own, being aware of, the fact that they're important, right? Because I think that this is where we get into that kind of meat of, Affiliate says all the time, there's a difference between coaching and training. And it's something that, Affiliate has been laying into a lot in some recent posts. And I think that this is kind of the core, right? Where, without knowing that pain point, somebody could walk up to you, walk into your gym, or come up to you if you're offering, individual services, whatever it may be, some type of fitness, health endeavor that somebody wants to embark upon. And they could say, I want to lose 20 pounds. And a trainer would say, okay, you're going to eat broccoli and carrots and 10 ounces of chicken every meal and come back to me in 3 weeks. And we all know that we could, put somebody on a very restrictive, not sustainable diet and get them to lose 25 pounds really fast. But the fact of the matter is, I would be willing to say that pretty much every single time a human being has embarked upon that journey, they end up going right back in the other direction, gaining all the weight back. And the reason, yes, we know these diets and these fads in the health industry are not sustainable, but also we never talked about the pain point. We never talked about why do you want to lose 25 pounds? What's going on with you? It could be any number of things that is causing this desire. But if you just simply lose the 25 pounds, you're not nothing. You haven't been coached. Nobody helped you.
What's changed?
Yeah, nothing has changed. Sure, your body's smaller. Great.
Yeah.
But the behavior hasn't been addressed.
Right,
and the why of you wanting to lose the 20 pounds and, what choices made it hard for you to do that in the past? What are your habits? What are your routines? None of that has been addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which, FYI, coaches, if you're listening to this and that sounds like a lot more work than just do these workouts 4 days a week and eat these meals, they are, that's also, shocker, how you're going to affect lasting change in a person's life, so be prepared for that.
And build a relationship.
I mean, hopefully they're doing that, but this is the part where I want to say something that I know is going to piss a bunch of people off.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
I'm going to try to be diplomatic. And this comes back to coaches versus trainers. If you haven't been doing that, that doesn't make you a bad person. If, when we talk about the difference between a coach and a trainer, and to be clear, we're talking about a trainer is a person who is addressing the immediate and the shallow, do this thing to solve this problem, right? The coach is the person who's going deeper than that and saying, why are you doing the thing that you're doing and not the thing that both you and I know is going to take you out of pain, right? And so the other stuff is still there. You know, it's not like a coach is a therapist. It's, again, like scope of practice, right? But a coach is going to try to connect and deepen that, just like you said, Ashley, deepen that connection with that human so that they can affect that change. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh crap, and like you find yourself on one side of that spectrum versus another, that doesn't make you a bad person. But so often we don't understand how far we can go in our role until someone shows us how far the road goes. And so we're not doing this to like badmouth anybody. Like if you're a trainer, cool, come join us. Come join us and like deepen the connection with your athletes and just see how your life as a practitioner of your craft improves and how much joy you can get out of that.
And I guess that, you know, that links really nicely into a post that Philip did today. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll be last week, on, you know, coaches or trainers understanding the value of what they do and being coached, because they don't have coaches now, because they're the coach. I don't need a coach. Like, I'm a coach now. I've reached the pinnacle. Like, and therefore they don't understand the value of what they do because they've not experienced coaching. So they often don't charge appropriately for it, or you know, can leverage that. And B, the understanding the power of a coaching relationship when they haven't experienced that. Now, we, the collective term, the royal we, in this room, have all experienced the power of having a coach and the value of having a coach. You know, we know that has a deep and profound impact on our ability to actually get past our own bullshit and stories and limiting beliefs, and also to stop us doing dumb things. A true coach is not going to tell you what to do, but we're going to provide some bumpers to stop you doing something like really dumb usually with a question. But if you haven't experienced that, it's really hard for you to communicate the value of coaching to potential clients because you haven't done it. If you haven't had someone sit and ask you those questions about, well, why are you doing that? Why do you believe that about yourself? Or why do you keep repeating that? Or why is that important to you? When, let's face it, in our lives, how often do you have someone sit across from you and ask you those questions and actually genuinely give a shit about the answer? Like, not hugely. Yeah. So until you've had that and you've had some of those like profound moments in that relationship, it makes it really hard then to understand it.
Yeah.
And the value it provides. So people look at a coaching service and go, oh, that costs X amount. Like, okay, that's expensive, but without understanding the value it can provide and also allow you to create for yourself without experiencing it.
Well, I think there's a twofold operation there, right? So first, yes to all of that. Going deeper, yes, and
yes,
and slash in addition to, so going deeper, like the twofold portion is there's an ego involved in there. If you think that because you get a certificate on a wall, by the way, none of these are mine. All of these belong to my wife. If you get a certificate on a wall, I'm not fancy enough to have anything written in Latin except my tattoos. If you get a certificate on a wall and you think, cool, I am king shit of the mountain right now. Like, homie, life is going to come slap you at some point, you know? And that's not a if, that's a when. And so I highly encourage, if you find yourself feeling like, nope, I'm good, I don't have anything to learn from anybody, for the sake of you and everybody in your immediate vicinity, please roll back that ego. All right. Second, now we're going to come back to marketing and positioning and packaging, like how coaches talk about things, and hopefully they are talking about things, determines so much of to Ash's point, developing that initial layer of trust. So the first time I develop trust with a person is hopefully not the first time I'm speaking with them. Hopefully I have done stuff to establish myself as an authority and as a trustworthy person and someone who's consistent and reliable prior to them ever reaching out to me, and that way it's not dependent upon one entire phone call. And I think that, so here's a great example. If E.C. Sinkowski was not as consistent as she was in her messaging and how she talked about things, and she is like clockwork, right? And we had her on the podcast. She talked, it takes up a lot of her time to do that. But in doing that, she has established herself as someone who is, in addition to her bona fides, she's consistent and reliable. And that builds trust in her reputation. And so when she started the masterclass on how to become a nutritionist, people are like, okay, sign me up, that kind of thing, right? So I think that coaches, yes, absolutely. Like, you should stow your ego because it ain't your amigo, and be willing to accept the fact that you don't have everything figured out. And all you need to do is have a kid, and you'll discover that that's the truth. And hopefully without the consequences of also having a kid if you weren't prepared for it. But then if you are a coach, or if you think of yourself as a coach and you're trying to connect with these people, you have to consider how you're being perceived and how you want to be perceived, And I think it's really hard to have that conversation without talking about that stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Lisa brought up a really good point, and we have discussed this in length, I'm sure all of us in our own coaching calls, but like the fact that, how we're the $1 Million Coach podcast, right? But coaches don't know their own value. And at the same time, and we've all struggled with it. Sam, like you touched on, sometimes coaches don't know what coaching is. So, when they do ask the questions and they do all that work and they just think, it can be almost perceived as like, oh, well, that's just because we have a friendship now. But no, that is your job as a coach, is you ask those questions. So you do the extra work for them, and then you help them, seek and like stumble upon their own answers, kind of thing. But it's hard to conceptualize that when the word coach has been just thrown around, and a lot of people perceive it as just a trainer / teacher, and to go into an Orange Theory and be like calling them coaches when they literally just say what to do and when to switch. Like, if you're comparing yourself to that's like, I mean,
and
so let's go to a different rabbit hole.
Listen to the Fit Affiliate podcast and read the Fit Affiliate content. That's, this is the hill that Tony's prepared to die on, is to differentiate what coaches are in the ecosystem, because it has to a large degree become commoditized, and that's just where it's at. It's, a coach is a coach is a coach versus, and we've all done it. And I, was just talking to Christina about this thing that, when you get your level 1, technically you're classed as a CrossFit level 1 trainer. They say the word trainer. It's not until you reach level 4 that technically you attain coach. Yet we're all walking around in our affiliates with coach shirts on, because we're replicating the first affiliate. And, well, Coach Glassman was a coach, so I'm now running the affiliate, so I'm the coach, and we coach you. And that's all well and good, but it kind of has devalued the title of coach, but also the nuances of what actual coaching is. And when we get, back to the core of today's conversation, is about identifying clients or a group of potential clients or your niche's pain points, it's not just as simple as going, oh yeah, I want to help people who want to lose fat and gain muscle. Well, cool, bro. That's 90% of the population, but and that's really easy to speak to. Going, hey guys, if you want to, reduce, you get into the influence with the reduce, spot reduce on your legs or your butt or your tummy or whatever, or she's rolling her eyes. Like, we've all seen it. Like, do this exercise to get a flatter tummy. Like, we know that that's horseshit, but that's just very surface level pain point. Like, yeah, we all want a flatter tummy. Like, who doesn't? We're like, yeah, sign me up. I'll take that. Except for dudes, probably. Sorry, Sam. But, it's, we're all sign me up because that's a very basic thing. But really, it goes deeper than that. Is like, well, why is my tummy not flat? Because I can't stop sitting on the couch eating Doritos because I feel crap about myself. That's the deeper question. That's the coaching question.
Sure.
Yes, Sam.
But the reason, hey, if you want a flatter tummy, do this 3 days a week for 6 weeks is so attractive is because it, oh God, what is the phrase? It abdicates the responsibility of actually asking those deeper questions.
Mhm.
I don't have to look in the mirror and be honest about what I see there and how I feel about it. I just get to say, oh, that's a thing I want. I will do that thing. Never mind, why do I want to do that thing?
And if my tummy's not flatter, it's the problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's somebody else's fault when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I did
well,
Ash's
they
program
say
and my
things
tummy's the
if they
same.
do this. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
And to be 100% clear, now taking it out of the realm of coaching and training, now talking about business, like the people who are hawking problems like that, they are not connecting with athletes. They write a piece of content or they write a program and they sell it online. And their marketing is fantastic. They don't ever want to know you. They are too busy marketing to be able to know you, right?
Which is why they can sell the program for $10 a pop.
Yeah.
And you go, it's cheap, it's easy. I don't actually have to talk to anybody. So I don't have to have that awkward conversation. So I'm going to sign up for that because I can just hide in my lounge room and I can pay the $10, not actually do the program.
Right.
And nobody knows, but I signed up.
Yeah. Well, and here's a great example. Ryan Fisher, who runs Chalk Performance Training on Instagram, was talking about this other guy who goes by V-Shred. And I had never heard of this dude until he talked about him. Yeah. And I was like, what the frack? Yeah. And what he's the programs he's talking about are like something you could see in a TikTok or a Pinterest post. Like it's 6 lines, do this every day for 30 days, that kind of thing. Right. Mm-hmm. And this guy cleared $50 million in a year. Right. 40 million of that is marketing expense. And like, don't get me wrong, like he still made $10 million. So like, great for that dude. He's killing it. Yeah. But at the same time, like he's not trying to actually solve a problem. He's trying to sell a product. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that's bad either. That's how that guy is doing him. Right.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't look that good. Like I ain't got that guy's body. So that marketing thing, like I could spend a lot of money, but a lot of it would have to be CGI. So I could call Lucasfilm. I think it's going to cost me more than 40 million, but whatever. Right. I'm going to get the guy that took care of Chris Hemsworth and like made him all that.
Shiny.
Yeah. All shiny and naked, like in the most recent Thor. So I could do that, but those aren't my people. Right. The people who I'm connecting with are like, I got a handful of people, and we're talking about demographics earlier, right? I get a handful of people who connect with me as an individual. The people who connect with me are not 20 somethings who are, in the prime of their life and doing 2 or 3 competitive programs for fun. The people who connect with me and the people who identify with me are people like me. It's people in their 30s or 40s or 50s, people who have or had kids who, busy up their lifestyle. They're busy professionals. They're people who they want fitness and they want to live healthier and feel better, but they've got a limited amount of time in which to do that. And they need to know how to better spend their time. They need to know how to prioritize their sleep. They need to know how to, make better diet decisions most of the time. They need something that's sustainable, that is going to serve them, not for, a quick fix, but maybe for the next 15 years of their life, and I'm good with that, right? Because I don't have to worry about hiring Lucasfilm. I don't have to worry about crafting a message that fits everybody. I get to be genuine, and I get to talk about my life. I got a toddler and I got a baby, and fitness, it looks like something very specific right now. And here's how I make it work for me, right? And those people who have been or are in a similar situation, they identify with that.
I think,
and
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, Christina. You go.
Well, I think that we've been really focused on, everybody sitting here, we found our niche, and, we're kind of pursuing that and pursuing the people that we want to help. But I think that there's also, a whole group of coaches or trainers that are working in the affiliate setting that you may not necessarily have like full control over who you're working with day to day. And, but I think that there's still like such importance to, being aware of those pain points and having those conversations with members in your class, to connect with them, but like also having that, again, that huge piece of self-awareness of your own pain points and issues, right? Because when there's a class of 20 in front of you, you don't know who's going to come at you. And like, something that really comes to mind for me. And again, this is why I hire coaches, right? Like this is how we get to this point, because we need somebody to tell us and like call us out on our bullshit. When I participated in the CDP with Denise Thomas about a year ago, and she took me to a class that was happening within a CrossFit affiliate and told me to look at the class and said, I want you to pick out who is like the disinterested kind of like problem member that just like doesn't really want to be here. And so I was like looking around the room and I was like, that guy right there. Didn't even have to think about it. It was this guy with like a long flow, abs. He was like, had a backwards cap on. He thought he was hot shit. And I was like, that's the guy. He's a problem. He doesn't care what the coach has to say. And she's like, okay, all right, keep watching. And I'm like, yep, wow, what a jerk. There he is. And then like, sure enough, they go to start doing some front squats. And he was the first one to be like, hey, coach, can you watch my front squat? I just want to make sure that it's good. Are my elbows high enough? Like, am I getting deep enough? And I'm like, oh, wow, I was wrong. That guy actually is like super into this. And it so happened that there was another person in the class who was female who, not that she was like a problem, but she just was very disinterested. Right. And so as a coach, you would maybe want to like zero in on her and just be like, hey, what's going on today? How are you feeling? Like, how do you feel about front squatting? Kind of digging deeper and getting those pain points. But because I would have been so distracted by one of my pain points, which is extremely fit males, tends to put me into maybe.
There's a soundbite for us.
So that V-shred guy, right?
Yeah.
Totally triggered by him. But if I hadn't been called out by her in that moment, I wouldn't have the awareness to know that, okay, when I'm working in a group setting, here's my trigger.
Yeah.
This is my situation that I need to deal with. And then like being aware then of like, wait, who is the disinterested member that I need to kind of pinpoint, and just not to be like, hey, why are you being a jerk in my class? But like, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling today? Is front squatting your thing? Like just kind of is something like, is your knee hurting? Just kind of getting a little bit deeper and then getting into that conversation, and, and maybe it's just something, maybe there's a pain point that person is experiencing, but you can help them within that class.
So I love that. And I'm now wondering if it's the class you came and observed when I was at One Nation.
Oh my God, it is.
Hilarious. That's funny.
I forgot.
Great.
Yeah, so that's and I don't remember at all who was in that class. So I think it's funny that you remember the people, and I just remember being like, God damn it! Like Denise and Christina are like sitting there watching me as I do everything. So I love what you said, but the fact still remains that looking at yourself in the mirror and being honest is a terrifying proposition, which is why most humans like walk around with blinders on, right?
Mm.
So I'm an obstinate coach. I don't know that I'm obstinate. I just am human. And I don't want to look in the mirror. What do I get when I look in the mirror? Sell me on that.
Mm.
Because
And-
like 10 years into practicing like being self-aware and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
know that like I get a bunch of like it's a bunch of good stuff. Like, but the first time it's fucking terrifying, and I just want to run away the entire time. So like I feel like we need to bridge that gap and help them understand like what's the gift, what's the boon on the other side of the fire.
Yeah,
And
I
I-
feel like that's a different podcast.
I think we can.
I
definitely-
want to get into it. We need
I
a
know.
while.
Yeah, we need a lot longer, a lot more time.
That's going to be definitely another episode. So we will bookmark that for sure. But I think that, you know, part of that, Sam, just to tag onto that, is that if you have a coach and you get a coach to navigate that first uncomfortable bits, it's far better than you being reliant on your own reflection back in the mirror, because you're tending, like you said, you look away. Whereas if you've got a coach who will sit there calmly and patiently and just let you hold the space for you, it can be very powerful.
And you
So-
bring your own self, like your limiting beliefs, to that vision of yourself when you look in the mirror. So your coach helps you become objective and ask you, why do you see it like that and not like this? And then you go,
So
oh,
to
crap.
put a bow in this one, I
Yeah.
think that the conversation has been robust and amazing again today. I look forward to next week, how we're going to get into the pain point, and then how do we communicate and position ourselves, and what's our messaging around them, and, you know, convincing people that, you know, it's okay that we're going to hold that space for you and we don't just have to do stuff on the surface level. So tune in for that cliffhanger episode. Thank you guys for your input today. Have appreciated it, and looking forward to the next one.